Before closing, there were a couple of things that I wanted to quickly discuss with you that we haven't covered yet. And I'd like to start by just opening a group of images up in Camera Raw. Like this. And as soon as they've loaded, just show you a couple of things that we haven't yet mentioned. The first thing is that when you click on an image in Camera Raw, a small yellow warning triangle appears in the top right hand corner. I hope you noticed that, but let's just hit another one there. And it will remain there while Camera Raw loads all of the data in the sidecar file, all of the metadata. So it's important that you don't start editing any of the images until that yellow warning triangle disappears. The next thing we haven't mentioned is this very important button here that says synchronize. Now, let us say that I have 5 images here, all of which need the same white balance, the same exposure settings. So having set up all of these things on this first image, it would be lovely if we could reproduce those settings into other images. And in fact, Camera Raw allows us to do that very easily. All we have to do is select the images that we want to move this image's settings from to. So I'm going to hold down the Command key and select some. Now if I click on Synchronize, this Camera Raw dialog box opens up and it gives me the option to either choose all of the settings that I've made for this particular image or some of the settings that I've made for this particular image. There's a drop down menu with all of the most important ones here as well. And when I click on OK, which I don't want to do at this precise moment, but if I click on OK, all of the settings, the temperature, color temperature settings, the exposure settings, vignette, anything that I've added to this image, which is currently open in the main window, will be applied to the other images that I've selected. And this obviously is a huge time-saving facility. If, for example, you did a shoot where the color temperature was just wrong throughout, you only need to correct the first image and then you can apply that correction to all of the others. So let me just close this window and cancel back to Bridge. The other thing I wanted to show you was how, I think we mentioned in a previous exercise, how it's possible to actually apply presets that we've created without the need to even open Camera Raw. And just to illustrate that, if I select this image and decide that I wanted to add that white vignette that we created to this image, all I have to do is right click my mouse, go down to Develop Settings, and select my white vignette from the menu, and when I release, the effect has been added without the need to even open the image in Camera Raw. So the effect was created in less than a second. So this is an incredible time saver for people who work in Camera Raw regularly. Now, it's important to note that once you've opened an image in Photoshop, you can't save it as a raw file. This is because when you're editing images in Camera Raw, as we've discussed, you're working on generally 12-bit images. And when the image is subsequently opened in Photoshop, it's opened probably, unless you're working in a 16-bit environment, but I don't know anybody who does, most of us will open them up as 8-bit images. So saving over the previous version, the 12-bit image, would be destructive. In order to preserve the best possible quality, I'd certainly recommend saving as a PSD, a Photoshop file, or a TIFF, neither of which will compromise the quality of the 8-bit image. And if quality is important to you, then the general advice is don't save as JPEGs, which saving as a JPEG is a destructive process. So, I hope these short lessons have helped convince you to give Camera Raw a whirl, and if you want to learn more, here are a few useful resources. First of all, The help menu within both Photoshop and Elements offers lots of help, and of course doesn't cost anything, which is always a good thing. Adobe's website contains a number of freely accessible training videos on Camera Raw, and here's an address worth visiting where you can watch videos by some of the world's best Adobe trainers. This website has a 30-minute video exploring new features in Camera Raw 5.2. And the definitive book, I think, on Camera Raw is published by Real World and is by Bruce Fraser. As well as comprehensively discussing Camera Raw, it contains a really good section on Bridge as well. And at the time of speaking, it's available on Amazon at £17.39. And finally, Michael Reichman's amazing Luminous Landscape website has got tons of information about Camera Raw on it. Here's the address. The site offers a load of downloadable training videos too, but I hope after this little lot you won't need them. Thanks for listening.